Hey people, welcome to Blue UK Jazz Dance. This is me in the Blue Lab. I want to share with people, I want to talk about self-expression and creativity, the importance of it. Simply this, every culture, for their health, well-being and happiness, should be allowed to self-express themselves, socially, physically, intellectually, culturally, emotionally, and spiritually, politically, economically, technologically, environmentally, legally. Yeah? All age groups. I, as a pioneer of UK jazz dance, which is an umbrella term for a number of UK underground jazz dance styles, wants to share with you an amazing story. Amazing story of being a West Indian immigrant. I was born in 1964. My parents came here in 61. And my dad's Jamaican, mum Grenadian. You heard me speak about it already. When they came here, there's individuals who were debased. The West Indian culture was debased as an inferior culture. It's important that people understand every aspect of it. We as a people were inferior socially, physically, intellectually, culturally, emotionally, spiritually, politically, economically, technologically, environmentally, legally. When West Indians immigrated here post the war, the UK, the Great Britain government made sure that they didn't have any discrimination laws in place to enable a smooth transition for people from around the world who came to support them. Now, West Indians who came, for example, in Windrush, or in Windrush after the war, were individuals that many of them had fought in the war for Britain. Their flag was English, so you need to understand, Britain colonialized 23% of the world's population, and the flags of them countries were under the British flag. They didn't have their home flags. Okay, it's important that people understand. The Jamaican flag was a British flag. You need to understand. People got that. People saw themselves as British. The educational system was exactly the same as the educational system here. 3-tier educational system. People got that. It's important. But what happened in each island, they, as individuals, created their own self-expression because they knew that self-expression, creativity, your cultural self-expression is important to your health, well-being and happiness. It says who you are. It stands you out from the crowd. What makes you different than any other culture? Even though Great British culture was the dominant culture, people still had their own culture because it was important for one's health. Do you understand? It was important. What happened is when they came to Britain, they found that their culture was debased. It was demeaned as inferior. And that was unacceptable for individuals. So they created, what happened was they brought their own music here. Many West Indians and Africans brought their drumming here, brought their dancing here. And they brought their customs, the rituals that they would have on in the week, like Saturday, Sunday, what they would do Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Yeah. They brought their communal developments to Britain and changed it and transformed Britain. Because what happened was people were made to believe that Britain was this beautiful place. The Caribbean Africans were told Britain was this beautiful place where people were treated well. They were not. The working classes were very much ill-treated by the upper classes and ill-treated by the middle classes. People couldn't believe the poverty that they saw when they came here. They couldn't believe the lack of optimism, the lack of enthusiasm that the poor had. And what West Indians brought here, they brought an optimism that was not in the society at large through their cultural arts. Because one of the key things that the West Indians had, some people may not have money, those that lived in impoverishment, but what happened, they had an amazing cultural music and dance environment which kept them optimistic and hopeful, that bonded the community, built friends. Music and dance was a way to celebrate who they were and what they were, and to keep them hopeful and optimistic regardless of what challenges, unforeseen circumstances. Yeah. And what happened was that was their self-expression that kept them hopeful and optimistic, so they brought that here. And what happened when individuals were coming to Britain after Windrush, during Windrush and beyond Windrush, new music was being created after the war. So people brought, sound system was just been new in Jamaica, for example. So what happened, people who migrated from Jamaica, came to Britain, immigrated here in 1948, sound system, they brought it with them. What was happening in Trinidad was calypso. That calypso was brought here to Britain, do you understand? New ways of learning and developing through dance, improvisational dance was coming up. Boom, set to jazz music, to R&B. There was no set dances, but new dances were created in a new environment. And what happened for people to keep themselves alive, the number one self-expression had to be music and dance. And what happened, new mod coms had come, so they're coming to Britain. Mod coms had become commonplace in Britain. So what happened, for the first time, some people got their first record players. Yeah, so they had a radiogram and they could buy music cheaply. And what happened was, say for example, in Jamaica, the record industry had sprouted up in the 50s at a perfect time. People started to migrate, so people started to do the first import and started to import records, and they were importing American records. Same in Trinidad, calypso had come as a major new source of music. Again, people reached out and could buy these records. So a new culture was brought to Britain of buying records and dancing to the records and having gatherings within their homes, because people didn't have the money to go out. Or what happened was, there wasn't places for them to go out because they weren't given the amenities for their children to socialize and them to socialize. The place that they could use, they used their homes. Some people used church halls, but the home became a normal place for gatherings, because that was what consistently Caribbeans had done in the Caribbean, and people got that. So what we had something called cellar parties, led on to shebeens, which led on to blues. Now the Irish knew about shebeens. Irish knew about home gatherings and drinking because they had a similar history to the Caribbeans. The Welsh knew about this as well, and the Scottish, due to their oppression from the English. People got that. So what happened was, you found out a lot of individuals from the Caribbean ended up in the slums. They were placed in the slums of the UK, of the Great Britain. But what happened when they were placed in the slums, they started to share their self-expressions openly, because the Irish are very open like Caribbean people, so are the Scottish, so are the Welsh. How could they share with each other? They celebrated through live music and recorded music and dancing, and they were celebrating events that they have. So something called St. Patrick's Day, etc. We have Carnival, etc. So do you understand? So what happened was, beautiful number of great activity took place for people to live in a communal space, actually infusing enthusiasm into each other by celebrating great music, great dance. Yeah, because we got to learn Irish music, Scottish music. That's what they do. They celebrate. So great celebration took place in the slums, because people tried to talk about the slums in a derogatory place. I was born there in 64. Between 64 and 71 I lived there, and I can talk a lot about celebration, what took place. People weren't down. They kept themselves optimistic and hopeful, and each culture kept themselves hopeful and optimistic by working hard, having a hard work ethic, and using music and dance. And one of the key things I'm really relating to is that music is an important self-expression and creativity. Dances. Now, dance and music require dress, so people had their own dress sense. So the slums was a great place to see different cultures self-expressing themselves through clothes. And it wasn't done through trend. It was about making a statement of who they were. Because people in the slums were identified as these people who were inferior, people who weren't classy, people who didn't have grace. Do you understand? They were clumsy, they were oafs, they were inferior, they were barbaric, and people used their fashion as a way to show, we've got class, we've got grace, and they used their dance and music to show that. Blue UK Jazz Dance, sharing with people, the importance of self-expression and creativity, how it's important to one's health, well-being and happiness, and important to a community, bonding with each other, building camaraderie with each other, and sharing with other cultures. And one of the key things that came through African diaspora self-expression with wider groups in the slums and outside the group, better social cultural cohesion came through our self-expressions. Blue UK Jazz Dance out.